story. Wheat was the big mover this week, but corn and beans are also up modestly. Where do you see those headed?
Well, I think the important thing what we did in corn first was, we rallied from the pre-June 30th Blockbuster Acres report. I think we rallied 65 cents, maybe something like that, and we closed December corn 2 consecutive closes on a daily basis above $4. I kind of like to see corn close about 405 and a half, meaning the guy that buys it there says, gosh, if we go down 10 cents on Monday and close at 495, I'll risk 10 cents, but I won't risk 20 type of thing, So if we can get far enough away from $4, then on Monday morning, traders will look at it and say, all right, we're above $4. We didn't think it was ever going to happen. What's going on out here? What's the weather like? And, Elwin Taylor, Mark Russo, Drew Learn, and those guys have still got this carrot out there that will probably end July pretty decent. They're going to get hot. I'm in the field spraying soybeans now. I haven't had this crop this good in soybeans with no bugs in a long time, and the corn looks perfect in northern Illinois, but there are problems. And what they're telling us is that we're going to finish July really well. But this is a futures market, and the market is looking and saying, okay, we all kind of agree that this heat tank thing may come back in August. And there are some agronomists that are saying, historically speaking, corn doesn't finish well when it ends the season hot and dry. And last year we were cool. We haven't had a year like last year, maybe 2 or 3 in the last 20 years where everything was perfect. This year is not like last year. It's not cool and wet and not excessive wet like it was last year where we were hoping that we don't get a frost and we got a perfect crop. And that was because we had, relatively speaking, I guess, without the maturity problem, but we had a cool summer, and corn is a weed that likes to be cool. So we have not been tested on these varieties, these genetically modified seeds that since 1988. And remember back then we were trying to design something that would take heat and pollinate better. I think we solved the pollination problem, but it's yet to remain to see whether or not this corn can go into a dry spell and have the kernels pollinated and be filling those deep kernels to see how deep they can fill them. We haven't proven that yet, and that's what the market's worried about. Now, if you look at, I think the next top producer column is coming out mid-August, and I have a supply and demand for corn in there with various yields. If we get 160 bushel yield, we could get below a billion bushel carryout. So we need something greater than 163, between 163 and 168 to break even. And when you take a long look at it, all we've been doing for the last few years, last 5 or 6 years, except one, is producing just enough to meet demand, and we were living off a carryover. Now, if we get 163 and a half bushel, which the USDA thinks is trend line, we will use more this year and next year than what we produced this year. So we will eat away into that carryout. So we're precarious in that carryout. If China buys 300 million bushels from us, you're off to $4.50, $5, probably depending when they buy it. So a lot's going to depend upon what the crop report says in actually October 12th. So that's when they're going to really know the yield better and the acres. And that's what the market's wrestling with. I guess what I would want to see is if corn can trade well above $4, and let's say 417, 420, what we would probably know then is that somebody's nervous. A lot of people are nervous, end users, the guys that didn't believe this. And what should not happen after going that forward, we shouldn't see corn close below $4 again in the lead contract. So at some point in time, you could buy corn or hold corn that's in the field and say, all right, it's 410, I'm going to risk a dime. It's 415, I'm going to risk a dime, 15 cents, and all of a sudden it's 425, and you say, I don't want to risk 30 cents to find out if this was the top. I'm going to sell a little bit. And that's when we begin to reward the market, and that's what the market's going to do is get us to sell some because we've got loads of us that are going to have the best yield in history. I think first thing I do is sell anything above my 5-year average. And if that's 20 bushels an acre, I get that sold. And maybe I go to the cash market because the basis, is a lot better for fall delivery than it is for cash. It's very wide for cash because they got a lot of rotten corn left. So that's what the market's dealing with, and we're in the driver's seat for now, but don't let complacency set in and suddenly find out that we've got an average crop and we go back below $4 for a while. 2011, I think you gotta get corn acres bid up 2 million acres more at least, depending on this year's yield, to cover the demand for next year, especially if our economy gets better in the world, which it seems like it is. There's a lot of debate on that one yet, but if it is, then we're going to export more corn as well. So this is good. We didn't need 170 bushel crop, and I don't think it's there, but we'll know in October. And soybeans, here again, what's left in the weather will be the 1st of August weather, and you can readily tell and see from years past that, for me, I can't hardly remember, and this happened though, where we have gotten a good corn yield and a good bean yield both in the same year. Now last year was pretty good, but I can remember many years where corn on one side of the road was fabulous and beans on the other side were not so fabulous because it didn't like a wet July and a dry August, and corn maybe didn't care, or it got hot and we didn't fill those pods in late August, and corn was on its way to having enough moisture. So if we would take yield down to say 40 and a half, which is 2 bushels less than something now, that takes us down around that critical area again, and then we don't see the light of day below $9, I don't think, but we need to find out just what that crop is. And these are hard to determine. I can look at this crop and say it's got to make 50 bushels minimum, and I've been fooled before, and it's come in at 44. So we won't know until we harvest this thing, and that'll be an October report. Will be a blockbuster for beans. That'll tell us whether we're going to have enough for the rest of the year or not, and whether China's continuing to buy.
Okay, Jerry, thank you very much. Have a great weekend.